one. Hello, boys! What's going on? It's Preacher, and I hope you're having a great weekend. Just before the weekend, though, we did get yet more Gamescom information regarding Legion. We had an interview that went down with Game Reactor, where they had some really good questions, finally. Some solid questions that went out to the guys about how the development of the expansions is going, how we're looking towards the future, all that kind of stuff. And once again, the community was waiting with bated breath in order to jump down their fucking throats. I really recommend you watch the interview itself. It was filmed, it's on video, and it's really short. And the guys were so laid back and happy because they just had an amazing Legion launch. This was far more than anyone expected, right? We expected nothing. I went online and said multiple interviews on different shows that I expect them to go, here's the name, take from that what you will, we're waiting for BlizzCon. Blizzard said, fuck that, we need to get the ball rolling. People are pissed at WoD, we get that, we see that. Here's what's coming, though. Get back into our good books, because we've kind of let you down with Warlords of Draenor. We're going to defend it a little bit. We're going to say it's not a filler expansion. It's none of that. Yeah, we made some mistakes, though. Not going to hide from that. They've openly said that, yeah, we kind of stuck some things in there last minute, like reputations. We realised, oh, we haven't got any reputations in the game. What the fuck are we going to do? Should we ignore them? No, let's just clamp them on. Oh, shit, that was a bad idea. All that kind of stuff. So they then had this awesome Legion launch, and people are like, holy fuck. So they must have seen already the resubscription numbers were flying through the roof. That evening, so many people joined our community guild on Taran Mill, and we're all coming back, getting ready for Legion, preparing their characters, doing what they could while they had time. So things were looking pretty peachy. But then again, they had this post-interview stuff where they gave some more deep insight into it, and the community is just waiting like a fucking Wolverine in a cabinet to leech out and grab onto them and tear at them and just wait for them, and looking for any moment to tear them down, really, and to rip them apart. Now, one, that's kind of a piss-poor way of dealing with things, especially, and I imagine most of this comes from the guys who cancelled during WoD and just believe everything Blizzard said is nonsense, garbage, but you have to believe, in some respect, that they didn't think WoD would go the way it did. They probably thought they had a good product on their hands, and they probably thought it was going to work out quite well. And they released it, and they were, you know, hey, everybody's coming back. Look at all the subscriber numbers flying up when Warlords was released. Let's not forget that Warlords of Draenor was one of the most successful, in terms of returning players, expansions, launches of all time. It was. The numbers skyrocketed compared to Mr. Pandaria and so, and therefore they must have been sitting pretty, thinking that things were quite good. But now we have this community who has been bitten. They've been hurt. They've been gashed. And they have. Okay? And they unsubscribed. They stopped paying Blizzard. And now they're looking for ways to mainly not return. Let's just put it out there on the table. A lot of people who cancel subscriptions to MMOs like to look back and like, there's an almost smugness there, and you guys recognize it. Not everybody does it. Let's not overgeneralize here. There'll be some guys out there who unsubscribe because they were just a little bit bored, but are quite happy to wait. But a lot of people who unsubscribe and finally call it quits and throw in the towel, they are always going to be negative towards that company. Negative. I have been on record and said, look, I'm not getting excited about Legion. And I think that is the taste that's in more people's mouths than ever. Is that previously Blizzard could have just served something up to us and we would have gone, fuck yeah. Why? Everything you've released up until now has been pretty goddamn awesome, and I can't wait to see more of it. What has changed that dynamic? Absolutely changed that dynamic. Then now people are like me, I'm skeptical. I'm like, okay, I see where you're going with this. I want to see more. I want to see more information. I want to test it. I want to try it out. I'm not putting my faith in you 100%. And that's the effect that WoD has had on a lot of people, is we're like, yeah, okay. Well, let's just wait and see. We had Diablo 3, that didn't quite work out. It got there in the end, but now we're talking about a game that's not getting really solid development time mid-cycle. It seems to be confirmed almost that what you get on launch is kind of how it's going to be until the end of the expansion, because we're on this bizarre 1-year timeline. I'm not saying I like it. In fact, I very much dislike it. But that is the way it goes with WoW right now, is, yeah, whatever you get and we make for the launch, that's kind of what we're going to see all the way through that. And WoD was clear evidence that we don't get really big development mid-expansion anymore, which is things we were used to during the TBC, Wrath of the Lich King, through Kata, through Mr. Pandaria. We got huge development that went on mid-expansion, and we're not really getting that anymore. So it's a little bit ropey. So what we saw in the Game Reactive interview, what did people react badly to and start crying out for? Mainly, the big one that caught people a little bit by surprise, and I'm surprised you were surprised, or if you were one of these guys, is that the next expansion after Legion is already in development. And people were like, whoa, what the fuck, dude? What? Really? Like, you haven't even released Legion yet? You're already working on the next one? Of course they are. We're on this 1-year time schedule. And they absolutely already have the Legion world built. It's built. They're in internal alpha. No doubt they'll start letting friends and family and those of us in the media will allow to be access to alpha soon. They'll also have a working build at BlizzCon. The world is constructed and made. The story has been outlined and done. The dialogue has probably been inputted, recorded, and the text boxes have been put in. All that kind of stuff is in existence already. It's been created. So what do you do with all those guys? They start working on the next thing. You can't have all these developers who create worlds just sitting around waiting for like 12 months and okay, now we'll start doing the next expansion. No, they'll start working on it now. What are they not working on? More than likely, the features, right? They don't know. It's only after you try and test things can you say things like, okay, well, this hasn't worked out, so we need to develop something new. Is there new ideas we could put into there that we can't quite squeeze into Legion? Or we've just had a great idea, can we do that? Those kind of things maybe are going on, but more than likely, the practical effects and actual feature sets are still being worked on for Legion. The world building, and more importantly, the story and the setting, that has to be in development already for the next expansion. Because that doesn't matter about features. It doesn't really, really matter how the profession system will work. Because this is how the zone will be. This is how that will look. These are the kind of setting. We could say things like, and this is purely skeptical, is the next expansion will be sort of Naga based. Okay, so we're going to need some watery environments. We're going to take some ideas from Serpent Shrine Cavern and so on like that, and then we're going to look at that and we're going to develop that and grow on it and make things work, and we need some 5-man dungeons maybe. So yeah, we're going to do 5-man dungeons. Yeah, more than likely. So let's start thinking about the kind of art assets and all those kind of things that can go into there. And that can all be created now without taking anything away from Legion, and of course without having to have the features and the actual play style put into place. They're not going to put the mechanics in now, right? I mean, this is all guesswork, but that makes total sense to you guys, right? Nothing to be upset about. What was interesting to me, though, following on from that, is that WoD and Legion were kind of on the table and they weren't sure which one to release first. That's really interesting to me, is that they had 2 expansions on the table and they're like, which one do we do first? Like, we're already underway with 2 of these. And we're not quite sure which way we want to go. Do we do WoD first or do we do Legion first? God knows how the game would have worked out if it would have gone either way. Because obviously the technology for garrisons and all that kind of idea was on the table as well. And inputting that into the Legion world, how would that have worked out? Would it have been made things very differently? And also interesting that maybe they're simultaneously building 2 worlds. I mean, for all we know, they could mean they had the name Legion and the idea, and the name Warlords of Draenor and the idea of what it was going to be, and they just sat there looking at 2 pieces of paper. Or they could have been steadily developing a very heavy Burning Legion style of things, which would cross over into WoD in certain areas, because we do end up going into the Fel areas and dealing with Archimonde and so on and so forth. And obviously twisting the story to how Gul'dan would have played out in Legion as compared to Warlords of Draenor. I'm no doubt that it would have been quite easy actually to swap them over in some manner, either by Gul'dan disappearing at the end of Legion and then coming into Warlords and so on and so forth. But it's kind of, I find that really interesting. They had 2 expansion ideas that weren't linear in any way at all. They were like, we can do either one of these right now. I think that's pretty cool. So what can we do there? How do we make this work? Do we want to go with an Orc-heavy expansion? And they mentioned there is like, they had this frustration that players were going, God, more orcs, more orcs, more orcs. But they already had Legion on the table. And they're like, well, yeah, but hold on 12 months. We're going to give you something that's very non-orcsy. It is coming, but we can't say anything yet. Coming away from this, I think I want to make a kind of decision here. Unless they do something really, really crazy, I don't think we need to address outrage anymore, or indeed, if lots of people came to me with this, mainly via email, regarding the idea that the next expansion was already underway. I don't think I can really comment on it too much if it's not something that's not common sense. Common sense wouldn't actually answer your question for you. It's like, yeah, of course they're working on the next expansion because there's lots to do before you start actually building the inner workings of an expansion. There's an entire world to develop there, and the world that we're going to get has already been developed. It makes common sense when you think about it, and it could be at any stage of development. Just because they say they're developing it, that could just be writing the story, right? Or fleshing it out in some manner and tying it up to Legion in whatever it's going to be. I think until I see something that I think, whoa, that's a really bad idea, we're probably not going to address these things anymore. Because, frankly, and I think this is an important thing to take away, we need to be really careful about how much Blizzard gets pushed into a corner about what they can say. If you look at this video, and I think that's why it's important to watch it, is they're so laid back and happy and willing to talk about things, but the community as a whole is making them shut the fuck up. And it's a terrible situation to be in because no doubt ideas such as, hey, we have time to develop maybe one of these 3 things. Let's put them out there into the public domain and say, hey, what do you think about these things? And then somebody likes one of those things, but they don't have time to develop it. Or, in fact, more importantly, the feedback is bad for one thing. It's like, no, we don't really want that. But they can't do that now because people are going to get super pissed over that. Super pissed because they're going to say, well, you told us about these 3 things. Where are 2 of them? It's like, well, we had ideas to develop one of them. 2 of them got really bad feedback. One of them was quite good, so we worked on that. And maybe they're going to get that next expansion. It's like, well, they're not going to do that anymore because the community is so... And Blizzard's at fault here as well. They've created this greater-than-ever mindset of shutting them down as soon as possible. But I would encourage any of you to see any people grabbing something, especially when it's out of context and trying to make a big deal out of it, just to say, you know what, chill the fuck out, dude. Because what you're doing is actually backing them into a corner where ultimately they'll say something like, look, we can't really talk about anything anymore. And it's better for business if we don't. Until we have things that are really set in stone and well developed, we're not going to talk about it. And some of you might say, well, that's a really good idea, Preacher. They shouldn't tell us about it until it's really well developed. No, that's not the case, because development also comes from the community side, especially in an MMO, where we can maybe see things they didn't. That happens on lots of occasions. Lots and lots of occasions, ideas are thrown out by Blizzard, and certainly we see a lot more of that in the alphas, where we go in and we're like, yeah, this isn't working. You kind of thought this was a good idea. I see where you're going with this, but it's not fun. It's not interesting. Can you do something about this? And they change it. It's important the community gets involved and puts thousands of minds together. It doesn't matter if a proportion of those are loud nerd rages or perpetually offended. It's important that ideas are thrown out, and if it's something that might be cool, we can talk about it or give ideas or suggestions. It's always nice to build upon things. We don't know how hard it would be to say, oh, I like the idea you've done here, like we had recently on the web show. We like the idea of the class halls. What about if you could add this, this, and this in? Or maybe this is a good idea that wouldn't take much development time. And they go, yeah, that's quite cool. But what we're going to end up with is, class halls are completely finished. This is what it's going to be. Now we're allowed to talk about it because we can guarantee you're going to get it. And we're not going to get a huge amount of community backlash for not doing something. Why would we want to back the guys into a corner who may be able to give us something really creative, or we can in fact give ideas and suggestions towards things that might be cool? We don't want to do that. None of us want to do that. We want to be able to talk about this stuff. But we're making it hard. We're making it really fucking hard because anything they say right now... Let's put it in context. Since the Legion announcement, every single scrap of information that has come out of their mouths has been picked to death endlessly, and rage threads that have been completely nonsensical in nearly all occasions have been thrown back in their faces about it. And you can see right now where ultimately they're just going to be like, until we have like 120%ed, this is going to be in the game and this is how it's going to work, we're not going to tell you about it. Because frankly, it's not worth the fucking hassle of dealing with everybody going mad all the time and then us trying to firefight something which shouldn't have existed in the first place. And that's kind of a bummer. Other than that, have a great weekend, guys. I'm hoping we'll get some more Legion stuff soon. It's approaching. Quickly approaching is that BlizzCon. And the gut feeling is we will get Alpha either when BlizzCon goes out, shortly after, or even shortly before. So as soon as that happens, I'll be in there. We'll get the quick looks. We'll get all that kind of stuff. And we'll explore absolutely everything. All right? Have a great weekend, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.